Thanks for tuning in to this video. We're going to go over some of the preventative maintenance I've done on this car. But before we get started, I really want to thank Joe and Big J. Big J especially. He swung for the fences there on the El Camino project. He did a tremendous amount of work. And I've been so busy, not that we're not all busy, but I've been so busy with regular work, and I kind of got eyeball deep on maintenance work on this car. We haven't put a video out in a couple weeks. So John stepped up to the plate, cracked one over center field, if you ask me, and he got the front end of that El Camino project really, really looking sharp. That is a tremendous amount of work for those who have done it. They know he's doing a great, great job. Very appreciative of those efforts. So in this video, we're going to go over all kinds of stuff I've done on this car. We're not done yet. I want to get it ready for the spring, but a lot had to be done. Some of it I wanted to get done. Some of it, the OG told me, we're doing this. Well, happy weekend, and no, it's not Christmas, but it is still a very expensive ordeal here. This is nothing fancy. I got a box of stuff from Summit. I got a box of stuff from my local Napa store. Not sponsored by either. Hint, hint, guys. So what we're looking at here is about $400 in parts for some maintenance stuff for my car. Going to pack the front wheel bearings, going to replace the header gaskets. And this is the Holley spread bore that's been on this car since the early 1970s. This right here, this is the OG's OG Holley. This is a 4165 mechanical secondary double pumper spread bore Holley. It's been on the car for a very, very long time. Matter of fact, when I was a kid and I didn't know anything about how to build a carburetor, my buddy Mike, who builds our motors, his dad built this carburetor for me when we were probably in, I guess, maybe 10th grade, 11th grade. So in any case, what I'm going to do is just freshen this up. I do have to put a little bit of sealant on these plugs here because these weep a little bit. I noticed a little bit of a gas smell when I was working on the air scoops on the front. So this is going to be the carburetor that goes back on the car. There's no choke flap. I've never had a choke on it. I got it jetted just the way it runs great. As you guys have seen in videos, this is the carburetor that makes that car run. So it's got 60s in the front, a 7.5 power valve in the front, 62s in the back with a 6.5 power valve in the back. A lot of guys will say, wow, those are small jets for secondaries. Remember, this has a power valve in the secondary side. It's that old. A lot of the newer replacement carburetors, they do not have a power valve in the back. So therefore, you have to up the secondary jet size. Here's a same model carburetor, still 4165, mechanical secondary spread bore replacement. Even though it's a double pumper, it's got two accelerator pumps, one here and one on the back of this fuel bowl. It is a single fuel inlet, and that's what this supply tube is from front bowl to back bowl. Some guys love these, some guys hate them. It's just kind of what I know. It's been on this car for a long, long time. I guess I love it. This one is new enough. It does not have a power valve in the back, so it's got 83 jets in the back. This beast is also a spread bore. This right here, though, is a 6910. Okay? These are 6210s. 4165 is the line of carburetor in the car, in these Holleys. That's the line. That's the spread bore replacement mechanical secondary line. 6210 is the actual model of the 650 CFM carburetors, which make them kind of snappy. This is an 800 that Mr. Jones ran on his W-31. This one here has a power valve in the front. It's got like 61s in the front. Looks like it says 61.2 or something, 61, and then something else after that on the jet. They're kind of corroded. So we're going to say 61s with a 6.5, 86. Big jets with a power valve. I'm not sure how that 800 ran in this car, the Mr. Jones car. That's a big carburetor, man, for a small block, especially with 342s. So we're just going to do some seasonal maintenance on this one, re-gasket it, get it back on the car. I know the tune is right. I'm not even messing with mixture screws. I'm not messing with idle screws. I'm just going to put some new gaskets and new seals in these things because it was kind of getting weepy. And I got some spare kits for other stuff, just to have. Maybe I'll rebuild that one in the back. Some more base gaskets. Very cool calendar from the Napa guys. Stunning 70 Chevelle convertible. Man, that's gorgeous. Sometimes this is still new to me. And it dawns on me that maybe some of you viewers like to see some of the stuff that guys do in their shop to make their lives easier. This little trick that I came up with, I do not work on carburetors on the workbench, although that's how I showed it to you a minute ago. So here's what I did. Let me show you this real quickly. Underneath the carburetor is this stand that I made. What this stand is nothing more than an adapter plate from spread bore to square bore. Okay, I bought this at one of the local auto parts stores. They had the clearance table and this was sitting there. All I did is run some 5/8 bolts in there. These little grommets help from mauling up and galling up the base of the carburetor. I get these little grommets from these things. These are the carburetor base gaskets. When you're doing this long enough, everybody ends up with a box that looks like that, right? Carb tuning, rebuild kits. We take these things off and save them, don't we? No real clue as to why, but we do it. And you get to pop those little grommets out. Those grommets go on here nicely, just so we don't gall up the bottom of the carburetor. This adapter plate is to accommodate spread bore carburetors to square bore intakes and vice versa, okay? So this thing goes on here really nicely like that. And, I don't ever really work on square bores. I don't have any square bores that we run, but my little grommets are going to fall off in there. Yolan had left me with this brand new square bore some years ago just to try on something, and I don't think I ever did. But look, the offset bolts that actually are, in fact, the legs that I stand the stand on, this receives a square bore. So if you're in the market for a carburetor work stand and you see them for $50 or $60, well, by all means, go for it. However, if you find yourself at an auto parts store and you see any kind of a adapter plate, and I say adapter plate because you'll get the offset bolts, you'll get the 2 bolt patterns, as opposed to just getting a carburetor spacer for a square bore or a spread bore. That won't give you the bolt offset, so you won't have the versatility of the flip and flop here. So get one of these things. Again, I think I paid $20 for that. And you have a nice, inexpensive carburetor work stand. There you go. Put your grommets from a leftover base gasket and take your project carburetor and while you're doing this one-handed, there you have it. Sometimes when I work on funky things, this is a cool old tray that I actually acquired years ago. I think it was intended to be used over a barbecue. That's why it's got these kind of cooler handles on it. But you know what? It's a nice, heavy steel pan. And when you're working on stuff with potential for little parts to be bouncing around, it's nice because it's got the little lip. So I've done them in different drain pans and things like that over the years, but this one has worked out really well. You can kind of keep everything you're working on nice and neat. It's heavy. I don't need it this heavy, but just kind of the way it is. And it also allows you to kind of slide your work stand, your carburetor stand, all around and not getting jammed up on the wood. It might not look any different on camera, but I'm telling you, it's all back together. It's got a lot of new little bits and pieces in there. I put some of that quick steel epoxy on these press-in caps. It's really a poor design on Holley's part. It's a very, very known problem. You Holley guys know what I'm talking about. There's plugs that are pressed into the fuel bowls, and then they just peen over the aluminum housings to hold those plugs in place, and they just kind of ooze. This one was actually making a real problem for me. I guess in the springtime, really, you know, it might drip a little bit, and then I would try to address it and it would go away. But so I didn't change any jets. I didn't change any power valve specs. I didn't put a bigger shot secondary accelerator pump on it. It's got the standard shallow accelerator pump for the fuel bowls that have a power valve. I always have the opportunity, because I do have other fuel bowls, accelerator pump housings. I can put a bigger one on there, but look, it's got no problem barking the tires when you hit the secondary, so I'm thinking it's getting plenty of gas. Okay, gonna call it a day. Note, no choke flap. Haven't run a choke in this car in 20 years, 25 years at least. All right, let's see how it goes tomorrow. Well, there it is back on there. I ended up hooking it all up. I'm pretty confident it's gonna not leak. But you know what? Those nuts that hold it onto the mounting studs, you end up manipulating the accelerator pumps a fair amount when you tighten those nuts up. And once it's full of fuel, I don't want to be pumping fuel into the motor. So it's all hooked up, coil's disconnected. Let's just crank it over and make sure everything's bone dry. There it is, it's on and it's dry and everything is okay. That back lower fuel bowl screw was a bit of a pain. You know, you don't want to tighten those things up too much. You will crack a fuel bowl, sure as you know what. Okay, so how about this? It's pretty nice outside. I just got home from work. I have not yet started the car since we rebuilt the carburetor. So let's do that. Let's take advantage of it, because it's going to be crappy weather the next couple days. And if I need to do something else, I'll have time to do that, and I'll know it. So let's fire it up. Let me hook the battery up here and make sure my tune is good. Fire in the hole. Here we go. So what I worked on last week was rebuilding the Spread Bore Holley that's been on it forever. And like I've said in the past, I got big shoulders for a reason, and I don't mind admitting when I made a mistake or when I think I made a mistake. Rebuilt this carburetor, changing nothing in the tune. Same jets, same power valve sizes. Put it back together completely and utterly expecting it to start and run like it always does. Well, it puffed like a freight train, filled my garage with smoke, and I was freaking out that I was going to gas wash the cylinders, so I had a neighbor come over. My neighbor Seth came over and gave me a hand, putting his God-given talent to work and pushed the old girl back in the garage. Took it all back apart, saying to myself, what have I done? What did I mess up? Well, I even called Holley tech support and said, what did I do? I mean, come on, I've rebuilt this thing over the years how many times? It's like it's got a bad power valve. This wonderful guy, Gary, on the phone at Holley said, you know what? It sounds like you got a bad power valve. So rather than mess around with it, let me just send you 2 new power valves. Great. I bought a Holley kit from Summit. I bought a Holley kit for my Holley, for my car. Man, it ran like crap. And then this car never runs like crap. So what I did is I took it back apart and I put the original power valve, both sides. This carburetor has power valves front and rear. So I put the original power valves back in it. Starts and runs like it's fuel injected. It just runs awesome. And I'm saying, man, one of those power valves must be bad. And then, of course, in the middle of the night, you know, we all do this, right? We lay up in the middle of the night, think about what we did wrong. The original power valves have a flat button on them. and the new ones have that little nub on the button. That's not the problem. The problem is that the washers, the little gaskets for the original style power valves, have a triangular hole in the middle to self-center the gasket. You know, and I kind of do this stuff sometimes after work, before work, and I was rushing. And I think what I did, if I did anything wrong, I haven't tested that power valve yet. I think that gasket for the secondary power valve went to the side a little bit. Because when I took it out, it actually had a little bit of a slice in it, like it might have either been over tightened or overstepped its little seat on the power valve itself and actually got cut. Look, this is hot rodding. This is what it is. You know, if I made a mistake, I made a mistake. Luckily, I didn't build this carburetor for anybody else. Just for me and the OG. So if it's a mess up on my part, it's a mess up on my part. Very rudimentary. Sometimes welding floor pans and stuff is easier than that kind of stuff. But for those of you who have done it, I mean, rebuilding a Holley, regasketing a Holley, it's pretty basic stuff, you know. I rebuilt all the carburetors on this property, the Quadrajets, the Holleys. And look, so what happens when you got too many things on the old noodle, you know, you might think, this is nothing, just tighten up and move on. Sometimes actually what's better to do is, you know, hold that metering block up and screw the power valve in straight up, keeping that gasket kind of centered. It's a shame they did away with those triangular gaskets for the power valves. But needless to say, it's back to running with the original power valves. Okay, blah, blah, blah. What I'm doing now is finishing up on the maintenance on the front end. I know people like to see what's happening with Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is right here. He's just got to wait his turn sometimes. You know, there's only one set of these. This is what happens. It starts, it idles, it doesn't smoke, it doesn't protest. This is how it's supposed to be. That thing yesterday, man, I ended up pulling plugs out of the car, making sure that I didn't gas wash cylinders and crank the motor over with the plugs out. Okay, I'm back to being happy.